The next great battlefield of the Cold War would not be on an island in the Caribbean, but in the jungles of Southeast Asia, Vietnam. The Vietnam War wasn't just another regional conflict. It became the defining struggle of the Cold War, a proxy war where two superpowers fought for influence not with direct confrontation, but through blood spilled by others. Vietnam had been under French colonial rule for decades, but after World War II, anti-colonial movements swept the globe. In Vietnam, a nationalist and communist leader named Ho Chi Minh declared independence. When the French tried to reassert control, they were met with fierce resistance. The climactic Battle of Dien Bien Phu in 1954 ended in French defeat, forcing them to withdraw. But victory didn't bring unity. Instead, Vietnam was divided. The North, led by Ho Chi Minh, backed by the Soviet Union and China. The South, led by Ngo Dinh Diem, supported by the United States. The line between them, the 17th parallel, was meant to be temporary. Elections were supposed to reunify the country, but those elections never came. For Washington, Vietnam was not about borders, it was about the domino theory. The fear that if one country in Asia fell to communism, others would follow. Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, maybe even farther. So the US pledged to hold the line. At first, America's involvement was limited: advisors, weapons, money. But by the early 1960s, small deployments turned into full-scale commitment. By 1965, U.S. combat troops were landing by the tens of thousands. Eventually, more than 500,000 Americans would serve in Vietnam. But this wasn't a conventional war. The enemy wasn't lined up in open battlefields. Instead, the Viet Cong, communist guerrillas supported by the North, melted into villages, jungles, and tunnels. American firepower was overwhelming: B-52 bombers, helicopters, napalm. But technology couldn't root out an enemy that was everywhere and nowhere at once. Every hill gain seemed to be lost again. Every victory was temporary. America was trapped in a war it couldn't win, yet couldn't abandon. Behind the scenes, the Soviet Union and China poured weapons, training, and supplies into North Vietnam. Soviet-made AK-47s, artillery, and surface-to-air missiles shot American planes from the skies. Though Moscow and Washington never fired directly at each other, Vietnam became a deadly stage for their rivalry. Each side sought to prove the superiority of its system, capitalism versus communism, through the bodies of Vietnamese civilians and soldiers.